On model 1 I have now put together the hatch, as you can see here, and also got the undercarriage on. Now we'll go through the hatch, which has some of the 3D printed detail on it in a sec, but I'm just going to quickly go through the building of the wheels. Now if you're building the Secret Santa, that actually came with a set of wire wheels like that one there, and I'm going to actually produce a separate video to actually go through the construction of those, but they do come with instructions on how to put together if you wanted to give those a go, but I will have the video for putting them together up and available very shortly as well. So obviously the technique for those is a little bit different to the technique there. Those are the ones that actually also come in the Secret Santa kit, so you can actually make those up as well if you wanted to add those to the build. So okay, let's clear the decks, and we'll start building the wheels up for the Secret Santa. Oh, sorry, it's not for the Secret Santa. This video's for all Aviatik Berg D.1 aircraft, of course. So let's pop this to one side and go grab the bits we need for those wheels. Okay, so we have got our 2mm parts. That is D16 and D17. No, D. I can't make out. Okay, let's grab the assembly guide, or the quick reference guide, I should say. If I can find it, which I can't. Hang on a second. There we go. So D28 and D27. Yeah. So this little conurbation of parts just there, and obviously we have Z14 and Z15 as well, which will look like that if you've got a Secret Santa. There we go, like that. Okay. Oh, the other things obviously we need are the remains of our 1mm carbon fibre rod as the axle. That should be 80 as we cut it, and obviously we need the tyres as well. So and we'll pop that to one side. We'll need that in a sec for putting the hatch together. Okay, so let me get those parts out, and we'll start the assembly process. And the other parts that we need, of course, are some of the plastic bits. So we've got P14s and P15s as well. So I'll just liberate those and we can crack on. Now, these wheels for the Aviatik Berg D1 go together exactly the same way as the vast majority of the Micro Aces aero kits. So that is predominantly the World War I replica aircraft. So may pop this video out as well as a how-to for putting wheels together, and obviously the part numbers will vary, but what we do is we start with our axle, and I'm just going to take the edge off there if there is one on either side, and then I'm going to place the P14 part, which just disappeared on me. No, there it is. And I'm going to place that onto the axle like so. It should go through the hole quite neatly, so it's on there. And then onto that I'm going to add a little glue. Now I'm going to avoid sticking it to the axle at the moment, but if we do get a bit of glue on the axle, then so be it. It's not going to matter too much. So, a little bit of glue on there. And then Z14, which is the back of the wheel, I'm just going to slide on like so and stick one to t'other. And the reason for having a plastic part there is to stop the axle wearing the hole bigger in the foam, because obviously the foam is sort of quite delicate in these small areas, and that hole could get worn so big that the wheel essentially falls off, flops around, that sort of thing. So that's why it's basically essentially it's almost a bearing, but the wheel is going to actually be stuck onto this this carbon fibre axle in the end anyway, so it's not going to have to rotate around it, but it just stops that wear occurring. So onto here, we're going to put our D.27. So what I'm going to do, just add some glue to the back of that. Just so it sticks down. Need to clear my nozzle again. There we go. Just pop that on, make sure it's sitting centrally, and now we've got a bit of meat to our wheel. I can make sure that it's all lining up, so if I spin it I can see any wobble and just make a tiny little adjustment just to make sure that it's spinning smoothly, so I know that that hole is running perpendicular to the direction of the wheel. Now onto there, we're going to pop our D28 part. So just add a little more glue, then pop that through the axle through that part there, and then bring this wheel structure up to it. Make sure it's all sitting square, so we don't have wobbly wheels. And then the last part for now is the plastic part P15. So once again, a little bit of glue, pop it on, and then I'm going to give it all a bit of a squeeze, so it all sticks down nicely. So, and then check. There, fantastic. Right, so we can let that dry now. You could assemble the other one on here, which I will do. But before that, we're just going to do the scoring to the front of the wheel, which was Z15. So if I get the score guide, you'll see Z15 appears there. If I just quickly tape this down, between the scores if I can. Missed it completely. Oh, it's a little bit over, but it should be all right. side take down. And then, oh, found my shorter ruler, which is good. And then I can start scoring away. So the scoring goes through the centre of the wheel, like so. And of course what this does is allow us to create that cone shape. That's why there's that little cutout. There we go. So now we've got that all scored up, we can now fold those scores, each in turn. You should be able to wrap it into quite a tight cone. Make sure each one of those scores is bending. So you can actually sort of cone it up right like that. But obviously we're going to let it out and then stick those two edges together like so. And all that requires us to do is run a little bead of glue along one of those edges, bring those two edges together, and then we'll just leave them apart for a little while so that the glue has a chance to dry and become a contact adhesive, and then we can bring those two edges together and they should stay. So pop that over there. Right, I'll get on with assembling the other few bits and pieces so that we've got the second wheel, and then we'll come to pop everything together. So little progress has been made. Let's just get rid of that. So we have both our wheels constructed without the front part on at the moment. I've brought one of the front parts of the wheel together, like so. You can see just about see the seam there. Obviously I've integrated it on the graphic so it works quite well. So this one hasn't been done yet, although the glue is there, so I'm just literally sort of bring it together like that, and then you have your front wheel, or front part of the wheel hub. So actually attaching this to the front of the wheel is obviously, there's a little hole at the front, and that should sit like so. And obviously we've got a stepped part here that should support the front of the wheel. And what I'm going to do is put a generous amount of glue on the wheel itself, because this is probably one of the parts of the aircraft that gets the most abuse. So put plenty of glue on there, and then I'm just going to pop that hub back on, like so, press it home, and then I'm going to remove that and let that dry off somewhat, and I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side. And this will mean that although it's going to take a little while to dry, it'll actually hold that wheel together and stop the two sides of the wheel, the back and the front of the hub, from splitting apart So plenty of glue on there is the advice. And then obviously we're transferring glue over, and then pop that to one side, and we'll just let that all dry out. And with these, here's a little bit of advice. Obviously these will go over the rim of the wheel, and the wheels have been made so that they will retain these without needing any glue. But to make life easier for yourself, it's probably worth just stretching these a little, just by putting your fingers in there and just pulling them out like so. They're very tough, so you can just add a little more stretch, which just makes them a little more flexible and makes them easier to get over that wheel rim, like so. There we go. So there we go. I'll do that assembly at a later date once the glue has dried off somewhat, and then I'll leave those wheels without the tyres on to cure over around about 24 hours before putting the tyres on, so that I know that the glue is doing the work that it needs to do to keep everything together. So there we go. That's the wheels done. So let's move on to the hatch. Now, I think probably the first thing we'll do is grab the 3D parts that are involved with making this and make a start on getting them painted. So I'll just go and get those. So just pop that to one side, and in here you hopefully will have your little raft of 3D printed parts. Now, I'm going to suggest that normally I'd say paint these on the print themselves, but because of the complexity of the parts, it's probably worth getting certainly the engine off, and maybe even the rear of the machine guns as well. So let's just do that, and what I do is just carefully take the supporting struts off these beautifully thin scale looking exhaust pipes. Now you can actually use tweezers for this as well. Take my glasses off so I can see. So once the exhausts have been de-supported, then I'll just go around and remove what I can. It'll probably be easier if we get rid of the machine gun parts as well. These aren't so delicate, apart from right at the rear where there are some little mounting points that have been very carefully reproduced. But once you've got the majority off, you should be able to. They are actually interconnected, so these two parts here, if I bring that up, you can see that there's a bit in between here, and so we want to keep that there because that is the distancing part that keeps them nice and straight and level, and the correct distance apart for when they're actually inserted into the appropriate hole. So there we go. So those are off. If you want to give them a little bit of a sand where they where those little supports were, you can do. But there we go. That all looks good. So I'll pop that to one side. Let's get rid of some of this sprue material, support material, and then we got a good crack at the motor as well. So I'm just removing the stuff from underneath the other side of the exhaust, just roughly sort of moving it out of the way. And then there are some supports up onto the little springs at the top there. You can remove gently. So, go, and on the other side as well there are a few. Just one there. It's actually the software that decides where it puts the supports. It seems to change from print to print, but which is a bit weird. But then you can start getting a little bit boisterous in removing all of the supports from underneath. And just with a bit of a wiggle and a push and a pull, you should be able to get the engine off. And obviously I've got a lot of the supports that have come with. I can then start removing those just by carefully wiggling. So now Simon completely 3D drew this part, and you've even got, I don't know if you can see that, you've even got the little spark plugs there. So they're all along on each cylinder, which is quite something. Crazy stuff. Obviously it's just the top of the engine. Any more and it would probably weigh too much. But yeah, you can see the spark plugs, and there's another spark plug on the other side of the top of the engine as well, which is crazy. Now you don't have to paint the spark plugs, or just imagine trying to write NGK or champion on them. Not that would probably be on an Austro-Hungarian engine anyway. This being the what motor is it? It is the Daimler. It's a Daimler-Benz. So or part of a Daimler-Benz. So that's all of the sprue material removed now. And what I'm going to do, I've got you can use anything, but I've got a spare prop adapter here, and I'm just actually going to glue that to the inside of one of those cylinder tops. So I've got something to hold while I'm painting. Otherwise, I'll get my hands all dirty painted. So just put a little bit of glue around there. Put the lid back on, and then pop that on there. I'll just leave that to one side to glue, and then we'll come back to it. So we've got our machine guns left, which we are going to use, or certainly the rear of them. And oh, that's the other thing I was going to point out. These rods here, these long rods that you can see running along past those little springs there and there, they're actually the machine gun barrels, which are extremely long, and they go to and fire through the prop. You can see a graphical representation of them there and there on the radiator. Yeah, so you've got the run all the way along there, and that's the armament sorted. Right, let's get rid of all of this sprue material. Oh yeah, and you've got the radiator cap there as well. So I'm gonna leave that on the raft for now, and we'll come and paint that later, and it can stay on there too, because I don't think any of the supports actually impact. Oh, there's one right at the back there which we can take off, but yeah, the rest of them won't impact the painting at all. So there we go. Anyway, right. So this I'm going to be able to hold on to like that while I'm painting once the glue has set, and this I'll probably just hold like so while painting. Paint wise, let's just grab what I need. So there's some I'm using this I have a combination of Model Air and Ammo colours. I just quite like these little bottles because it means you can dispense a tiny amount of the material. I've got an upturned lid as my palette, and I've got a selection of brushes here. I'll probably only be using one for the main painting. That's a nice sort of soft brush, and that I'm going to be using for dusting. So we'll come across those in a sec. So where's my brush? Oh, I've got some as you see, I've already been painting, but I've got some brush cleaner there. Well, I say brush cleaner, it's water. Excuse me. So let's just grab that black, give it a quick shake. Let's just dispense some. Go. Let's just paint these machine gun parts. So this resin should take the paint very well indeed. So you shouldn't need too much. And hopefully don't actually need a second coat either. There we go. I'll just turn them over, but it's not particularly important to paint the underside because that won't be seen, but just because it's there. You'll notice that Simon has very carefully hollowed these parts out as well, so they're nice and lightweight, fit for purpose. There we go. I'm just going to pop it down there and just paint that little connecting part too. There we go. Nice. Right. Now to the main event. Let's just lather on the black. I'm just going to paint everything black for now. But obviously we've got quite a complex piece here, and so we just need to concentrate on making sure that every part of it gets some paint on it. So just need a good amount of light to see what you're doing, and quite a flexible and soft paintbrush so that it goes in everywhere and doesn't break anything off. Well, I'll continue slathering on the black paint onto this part, and I'll come back to you when we are going to move on to the next stage. Oh, one thing I didn't tell you that I wanted to was that to get some of that black paint right inside the exhausts, because obviously it's nicely carbonized in there on the real thing. So if you make sure that you get that brush right inside and get that black paint all up in there, then that'll look good too. Now, once the engine is painted black, we can weather it somewhat, and also obviously the exhaust pipes generally were a steel, a mild steel, and of course they weathered almost immediately, rusted and pitted, and and all that sort of thing. So we can obviously represent that as well, and depending on how good a painter you are, it depends on how far you take it. Obviously there are also smoke stains on there too, as you can see on what I've done here. I've got a sort of a rusty effect on the pipes themselves, and then there's a darker element to the pipes at the end, which is supposed to represent the sort of the smoke staining. And I've also just slightly silvered with a bit of dry brushing the ends, so they tend to sort of pop a little more, so you can see the ends of the exhaust and accentuate the sort of the black interior too. So you can sort of really go to town on that, and then we can do a silver dry brush. Now, in the past, I've actually used graphite from a pencil and then brushed that on. That works really well, and it's like a non-messy way of doing it. But on this, I'm actually going to dry brush a silver onto the surfaces as well, and what that does, it just picks up all of the edges and the protrusions, and just makes those edges sort of pop a little bit more, so you can see the structure rather than it just being this amorphous black blob. So I'm going to I've got I've got some rust here. It's called rust. I've also got some old brass, which we're going to use to paint that little bit up there. So a little component to the engine. I don't exactly know what it is. I'm sure there are guys out there who will. But yeah, I'm going to paint that brass, because on the models that I've seen online, that's been painted like so. But I'm going to use that sort of brass colour as well in with the rust, because as we know, rust is a mixture of colours, certainly on ferrous materials, and so we can sort of go to town on that, really. Right. What have I done with my brush? My brush is in need of drying. So let's just dry that off. There we go. And then we can mix some colours. Let's just take those components out for now. Give these a quick shake. I might actually grab some of the. I've got an aluminium as well, which we can use as a sort of base metal colour that we can use to lighten stuff. So I'm going to have a whole mixture of sort of rusty colour. So let's just add some of that brass, some rust. And also some of the aluminium as well. There we go. I'm going to I don't want to get a huge amount of paint on this. So well, let's start off with a little bit of the aluminium, and then I'm just going to mix a little bit of rust in there, and then dry the brush off a little, and then paint on. So I'll just do the tops at the moment, and it doesn't have to be a sort of an overall covering. It's just to get an impression of that original steel colour. And I've started at the front there, where I'm guessing the obviously it doesn't get as much smoke as the ones towards the rear. So as the paint runs out, it's covering less and less. And we'll also flip it over and just get some more colour on the brush. And then you can see I'm not getting a sort of an overall covering on this, I'm just sort of getting it roughly coloured in. You can flip it over and go to the other side as well. Not a lot of that's going to be seen, if any. You get the gist of what's going on here. There we go. I mean, I could stop at that point and it would be a fairly sort of fresh new engine look to it, but let's not stop there. Let's get our sort of brass and other bits mixed in, see what we get, and then I'm going to properly dry the brush off and then set about adding a little more colour. It's not as dark as I'd have liked, but let's just go with it for now. Okay, let's get some proper rust in on this. I'm sort of daubing it on now rather than actually using any brush strokes, just to get a bit of texture on it. Trying to avoid hitting any of the engine with it. We'll deal with that later. And obviously I haven't done the other side yet, so let's just set about getting some paint on the underside of the exhaust pipes. There we go. I can actually, let's just get some darker rust, and then I'm just going to dab that on. There we go. Good. Right. So the next process I'm going to do is, I don't know if we've got any, we've got some black left. I'll add a little bit of water to that. See if we can get a nice Much darker colour. No, there's not a lot left of that, so let's just grab some black. Go, and then I'm going to wipe the vast majority of it off, and then dab the ends of the exhaust to accurately, well, not so accurately maybe, represent the smoke staining on the exhaust as well. Go. See on the other side as well, if we're going to be precise about this. A little bit more right at the tips there. I might just add a little bit just for wear and tear look to it, darken it up a bit. Splendid. Right, well, we'll let that dry off, which won't take long at all. I'm going to wash this brush, but I'm going to switch to this brush here. Now it's nice and soft and very floppy, which is exactly what I want. And I'm going to put some silver on the end of it, so none of that is silver anymore. So let's just put a little bit of silver on there, and then I'm just going to dab it once and then just brush all of that off. And then I'll start with the guns. That's a good sort of judge, and then just wipe this around, and as you can hopefully see, suddenly the edges are being picked up on all of the detail. On those machine guns. And it gives it a sort of a nice metallic finish too. So there we go. So we'll do exactly the same on the motor. So if I just brush out the top, you should see all of the springs, tappets, etc. come out of the shadows. And all that work that Simon put in to bring all these details onto the 3D printed file, all now start shining. So there we go. Now hopefully you can see. In fact, I could get slightly wilder there and go over that a little bit more, but it's quite subtle now. But there we go. So that's those two parts painted. Oh, we've got to do that little brass bit, haven't we? So let's get our brush back. Our old brass colour. Just a little daub of that. just carefully paint that collar. There we go. And that's it. Just I think I've got it all. Excellent. Now, the last piece of the painting is this the radiator cap itself. Now, on the aircraft that I'm building, this is actually a pale grey to go with the sort of the greeny grey of the sort of metal surround on the engine compartment. But on the Secret Santa, on the models that I have seen, it's been the brass colour, so you could actually paint that brass and or sort of certainly a dark metallic yellow to match with the radiator edge surround. But on mine, it's going to be this this pale grey colour, which if you're making that particular aircraft, this is the ammo acrylic. It's called pale grey. It's sort of a bluey, greeny grey, and that should suit me fine. So I'll print mine up with that, and those can just go to one side and dry off for now. So I've got my pale grey, and I'm literally just painting this up while it's still on the tray, and I'm not going to particularly weather this. But just make sure that all the paint is covering. I might give it a second coat, but it can stay on the sprue for now, so I don't lose it. Obviously, it's a very small piece, so good place for it to reside for now. So the wheels have had a chance to dry now, so I can pop these onto the caps like so. And on the other side too. Give them a good squeeze just to make sure they're all bonded, and then, as I said, leave these for a while to go off. I'll probably leave these 24 hours, and then pop the tyres on. The best way to pop the tyres on is from the inside, like that, rather than getting the outer diameter is slightly larger than the inner, so it makes sense to do it that way. And also, if there is any tight sort of little bits of damage, just give it a stretch. Any sort of wrinkling of foam, it's on the inside rather than the outside, so it won't be particularly obvious. So that's how you pop it on like that. But I'm not going to leave it on there because the inward pressure of that might start pulling the wheel apart before that glue is properly set. So just leave that on the axle for now and put that to one side.